He smiles. He utters pleasant words. He even calls himself a nice guy. But deep beneath that polished surface, he's brittle, fragile, and profoundly dangerous. Machiavelli didn't fear the tyrant. He feared the weak man pretending to be strong. Because when pressure hits, the mask slips, and weakness is exposed like rot beneath noble marble. If you can't spot him, you'll be utterly fooled by him. Here are the brutal Machiavellian truths that will unmask the weak man hiding in plain sight. The weak man doesn't dream of building empires. His deepest fantasy is to simply remain perpetually comfortable. He will invariably choose comfort over growth, instant gratification over long-term dominance, and safety over strategy. His entire existence isn't a forward march, but a subtle, ceaseless retreat. While the strong individual perceives discomfort as the crucible for mastery, the weak one views it as an existential threat to be meticulously avoided at all costs. You'll observe this in his consistent pattern of evading difficult conversations, sidestepping formidable challenges, and crafting elaborate excuses for every missed opportunity. He might articulate sentiments such as, "Now isn't the right time," or "I'm protecting my peace." But deep beneath that calm facade lies an insidious fear, the terror of risk, the dread of failure, the paralyzing apprehension of being exposed as fundamentally incapable. Machiavelli firmly believed that truly great leaders must at times traverse through fire, make unflinching, brutal decisions, and willingly embrace short-term discomfort for the sake of enduring power. A prince who solely seeks affection, who desires to remain perpetually unchallenged, and who merely wishes to drift peacefully through life, is no leader at all. He is regrettably easily vanquished by others by temptation's allure, and ultimately by life itself. The weak man craves luxury preceding labor. His primary focus is on eluding pain, rather than embracing a profound purpose. This manifests vividly in his relentless pursuit of distractions, endless entertainment, substance dependence, and shallow transient relationships. He performs just enough to survive, never sufficiently to dominate. He neglects to train his body or cultivate his mind instead, allowing his environment to shape his very essence. He externalizes blame to circumstances instead of meticulously sharpening the instruments within his dominion, discipline, clarity, and decisive action. Contrast this starkly with the Machiavellian ideal, the individual who deliberately defers gratification, who prepares in profound silence, who willingly sacrifices in the present to reign supreme in the future. That man, he is truly dangerous. That man commands respect even when he speaks no word. Why? Because he harbors no fear of the arduous grind. He embraces it with unwavering resolve. The man who worships comfort, conversely, is inherently fragile. The instant life presents a genuine challenge, he shatters. The very moment he is tested, he folds. He is akin to a castle painstakingly constructed of sand, impressive perhaps, until the initial wave inevitably strikes. Worse yet, his inherent weakness is contagiously insidious. Surround yourself with such individuals, and you will inevitably begin to shrink your own aspirations. You will commence rationalizing your own idleness, and chillingly, you will begin to become precisely like him. The brutal Machiavellian truth reverberates: comfort is a perilous trap. Power is meticulously forged in the unforgiving crucible of adversity, and the man who meticulously avoids challenge is fundamentally unfit to lead, to protect, or to rule. Discern the weak man by observing what he assiduously avoids. If he deliberately dodges the difficult path, if he incessantly escapes into superficial distractions, if his craving for comfort eclipses his desire for victory, you are not observing a man. You are unequivocally observing a liability. But there exists another equally revealing method. Observe with keen perception how he manages his own volatile emotions. The weak man utterly lacks emotional discipline. He is perpetually governed by his fleeting sensations of the moment. His transient moods, his profound fears, and his impulsive urges wield more control over him than his faculty of reason, precise timing, or strategic foresight. He does not deliberate, he merely reacts. This man will erupt in disproportionate anger during minor disagreements, collapse into profound self-pity when subjected to even slight criticism, and broadcast his myriad frustrations to anyone willing to lend an ear. Every single emotion he experiences becomes public domain, etched onto his countenance, reverberating in his voice, or far worse, extensively disseminated across social media platforms. He labels this as being honest or transparent, but in truth, he is profoundly emotionally exposed and strategically vulnerable. In Machiavellian terms, this individual is remarkably easy to manipulate. Why? Because he is utterly predictable. He wears his heart ostentatiously on his sleeve and conspicuously telegraphs his every move to both allies and adversaries alike. The sagacious strategist comprehends a fundamental truth: whoever can provoke you owns you. And the weak man is nothing more than a puppet with glaringly visible strings. Machiavelli vehemently urged leaders to emulate the fox and the lion, possessing both cunning and strength. Both archetypes demand profound restraint. The fox does not betray his fear, nor does the lion display his wounds. But the weak man, he roars when he feels afraid, he weeps profusely to be consoled. He spills profound secrets in moments of gnawing insecurity. And once the world perceives his emotional leash, they will wield it to drag him wherever their whims dictate. This profound lack of control poisons relationships, systematically erodes respect, and actively invites manipulation. Partners will inevitably distrust him. Legitimate leaders will abstain from promoting him, and adversaries will toy with him at their leisure. He becomes effortlessly provoked, and even more effortlessly sidelined. The emotionally undisciplined man also suffers from an acute lack of patience. When a plan necessitates time to unfold, he descends into panic. When he encounters even minor resistance, he whines incessantly. And when he is compelled to await the acquisition of power, he quits. Not because the objective is unattainable, but because the very weight of the waiting bruises his delicate ego. True strength is not discovered in suppression, but in precision. Power is not loud, it is measured. The truly strongest individuals feel profoundly, yet they act with deliberate intent. They respond without divulging the entirety of their inner emotional landscape. They can absorb a crushing blow and not flinch. They can perceive a tangible threat and remain utterly silent. That silence, that profound calm under the severest fire, it is terrifying, and it is the unmistakable hallmark of a Machiavellian mind. In stark contrast, the weak man will perpetually reveal his hand. Not merely once, but constantly. So pay meticulous attention to the precise manner in which he speaks, when enraged, the specific words he articulates, when consumed by nervousness, and the alarming speed with which he breaks when tested. If he leaks emotion like a ruptured drum, you are not engaging with a strategist. You are engaging with a liability disguised as a man. The weak man does not painstakingly construct substance, he meticulously fabricates spectacle. He is not inherently strong, so he desperately attempts to appear strong. He is not genuinely powerful, so he strains to seem powerful. And when his internal world is utterly vacant, he fills that void with cacophony, ostentation, and audacious bravado. You will recognize him instantly. He is invariably the loudest individual in the room, perpetually boasting, ceaselessly exaggerating, consistently overdoing everything. He flaunts luxury cars he doesn't truly own, quotes passages from books he has never genuinely read, and meticulously adopts the persona of someone he mistakenly believes is universally respected. Yet deep within, it is all nothing more than armor shiny, yet fragile armor meticulously concealing a profound insecurity. Where a strong man allows his intrinsic presence to speak volumes, the weak man incessantly performs. He desperately requires external validation to feel like a man. His very identity is outsourced, meticulously borrowed from transient trends, from fleeting influencers, from superficial aesthetics. He fundamentally fails to comprehend. He imitates masculinity rather than authentically embodying it. Why? Because deep inside he knows the unvarnished truth: he hasn't earned genuine respect, so he merely rents it with fleeting flash. Machiavelli would deem this man dangerous not due to any intrinsic power he possesses, but because of his profound illusion. When reality inexorably strikes, when life subjects him to its ultimate tests, he possesses no genuine foundation. He inevitably crumbles under pressure because his identity is merely a costume, not resilient armor. He has diligently cultivated perception, but he has never truly earned genuine resilience. This is the quintessential type of man who boasts incessantly about future success, but assiduously avoids present struggle, who shames others to artificially inflate his own sense of superiority, and who demands constant attention to feel genuinely alive. He may appear charming to the untrained eye. He might even temporarily deceive individuals. But observe him for an extended period, and you will invariably discern the telltale cracks, an insidious insecurity lurking behind the smile, thinly veiled envy behind the seemingly gracious compliments, and a desperate gnawing need lurking behind the facade of confidence. A Machiavellian cognizes that true influence operates in quietude. The most formidable individuals do not feel the need to raise their voices or ostentatiously flaunt their victories. Their power is felt, not shouted. Their strategic maneuvers are calculated, not performative. The weak man, however, cannot endure invisibility. If he is not being observed, he feels utterly worthless. This is precisely why he posts endlessly, brags, relentlessly, and meticulously dresses up his image as if it were a marketable product. He erroneously believes that influence is measured by fleeting clout, but Machiavelli knew better. It is measured by control, by consequence, and by profound character. So scrutinize him closely. If he perpetually requires an audience, if he consistently conflates superficial aesthetics with genuine achievement, if he is loud, overtly performative, and incessantly attempting to prove he is a man, he is not strong. He is merely overcompensating, and that unequivocally is weakness adorned in designer clothes. The weak man cannot endure solitude. It is not because he genuinely craves company, but rather because in the profound stillness of being alone, the unvarnished truth echoes far too loudly. In that pervasive silence, there is no applause, no distractions, no audience, just him confronting everything he desperately attempts to avoid. This man perpetually surrounds himself with cacophony people, screens, opinions, and endless stimulation. This is not because he genuinely relishes connection, but because it serves as a protective barrier against uncomfortable self-reflection. When left in isolation, he feels utterly empty, exposed, and profoundly powerless. The strong man perceives solitude as a formidable forge, a sacred space to refine his thoughts, fortify his convictions, and sharpen his vision. It is precisely where true leaders are meticulously crafted. But the weak man views it as a harrowing prison, a place where his inherent lack of direction, discipline, and depth becomes painfully unavoidable. This is the quintessential individual who indiscriminately hops from one friend group to another, perpetually requiring external energy to stay afloat. He dreads silence, incessantly plays music, scrolls through digital feeds, engages in constant chatter, and is utterly incapable of simply sitting still. He seeks out relationships not for genuine connection, but as a desperate escape. He doesn't merely fear being alone, he fears the uncomfortable truth of who he truly is when he is not performing for an audience. And because of this profound fear, he becomes remarkably easily manipulated. Anyone who offers him comfort or a convenient distraction instantly owns his undivided attention. Anyone who dares to threaten that delicate comfort instantly becomes his sworn enemy. Machiavelli issued a stark warning about such individuals. They are followers masquerading as leaders, and even more perilously, they are effortlessly conquered. They trade their inherent independence for a fleeting sense of belonging, their sound judgment for the ephemeral approval of others, and their potential power for superficial popularity. Because they are incapable of walking alone, they ultimately end up walking precisely where their emotional leash dictates, inevitably leading them to ruin. And here lies the most dangerous aspect. Their profound fear of isolation frequently transmutes into controlling behavior. Because they cannot tolerate being alone, they cling relentlessly. They suffocate others with their neediness. They masterfully employ guilt trips, and they manipulate others into remaining. Not out of genuine affection, but out of a desperate, suffocating emotional dependency. That is not strength. That is a ticking time bomb in human form. Contrast this with the Machiavellian mindset. Solitude is not something to be escaped. It is something to be mastered. The fox meticulously learns in silence. The lion meticulously prepares in solitude. Power unequivocally demands the capacity to walk alone, think independently, and stand unyielding even when no one else offers applause. So observe with extreme care. If he descends into panic when left alone, if he perpetually needs to be seen, heard, or reassured, if solitude shakes him to his core instead of sharpening his resolve, you are not dealing with a man meticulously preparing for greatness. You are dealing with someone who fears the mirror, someone who desperately requires others to distract him from its uncomfortable reflection. The weak man possesses no discernible long-term vision. He exists from moment to moment, perpetually lurching from one emotional impulse to the next. He does not meticulously plan. He merely reacts. He does not lead. He simply follows the prevailing pressure. And when circumstances inevitably go awry, he frantically scrambles for excuses instead of diligently seeking solutions. You will unfailingly recognize this man by his consistent and pervasive state of unpreparedness. He may articulate grand goals, but his actions remain utterly scattered. He impulsively plunges into commitments without truly comprehending their underlying consequences. He lashes out irrationally when cornered. He capriciously changes direction based on fleeting mood, not logical reasoning. He erroneously conflates motion with genuine movement and action with actual intention. He remains perpetually busy, yet he never truly progresses anywhere meaningful. A strong Machiavellian mind consistently thinks in layered dimensions, short-term tactics, mid-term maneuvers, and long-term strategic positioning. Power is not merely seized, it is meticulously orchestrated, but the weak man. He passively waits for life to simply happen to him. He only responds when forcefully compelled. By then, regrettably, it is invariably too late. This man is also profoundly emotionally reactive. A solitary insult throws him completely off course. A single piece of criticism instantly derails him. If someone dares to question him, he perceives it as an existential threat rather than a valuable opportunity to adjust and refine. He does not think in terms of the overarching game. He thinks exclusively in terms of his fragile ego. This fundamental lack of strategy renders him remarkably easy to manipulate. He is precisely the individual others delight in provoking because they are acutely aware that he will react predictably. He unwittingly plays into meticulously laid traps because he lacks the foresight to perceive 2 steps ahead. He carelessly spills his meticulously guarded plans because he is incapable of remaining still and silent. He relentlessly chases fleeting quick wins because he is fundamentally incapable of delaying gratification. And when the dust ultimately settles, he will invariably declare, "I didn't see it coming." Of course he didn't. He never sees anything coming. In stark contrast, Machiavelli's ideal man is calculated, not cold, but profoundly deliberate. He may appear passive at times, but that is patience, not paralysis. He intimately comprehends precisely when to wait, when to decisively move, and how to strike with devastating precision. He meticulously studies people, their pressure points, and discernible patterns. The weak man engages in none of this because thinking ahead demands effort and self-control, both of which he conspicuously lacks. Even within relationships or business dealings, this man will impulsively burn bridges he still desperately needs solely to satisfy his fleeting pride. He will recklessly expose himself during negotiations. He will prematurely play all his cards up front, mistakenly believing that honesty equates to strength, when in truth, strategy is the ultimate strength. So observe carefully. Does he consistently respond emotionally? Does he act without a coherent plan? Does he live in perpetual reaction to life, rather than being guided by a clear vision? If so, you are not observing a leader. You are observing a pawn on someone else's chessboard. The weak man does not strive to be respected. He desperately desires to be liked. And because of that profound yearning, he becomes irrevocably addicted to validation. He will go to extreme lengths to garner praise, assiduously avoid disapproval, and meticulously preserve his precarious image, even if it entails an egregious betrayal of his core values. This man is fundamentally a mirror, not an unyielding rock. He meticulously reflects what others desire to perceive. His words capriciously shift depending on who is observing him. Around strong individuals, he flutters nervously. Around weak ones, he engages in petty competition. Around women, he performs ostentatiously. Around adversaries, he submissively yields. He dons masks not out of strategic cunning, but out of sheer desperation. Machiavelli profoundly understood that genuine respect is meticulously built through strength, unwavering consistency, and earned fear not through an incessant craving for approval. The man who is obsessively preoccupied with being liked is effortlessly controlled. He fears disapproval far more than dishonor. He erroneously conflates fleeting acceptance with authentic authority, and tragically he ends up possessing neither. Observe closely how this man conducts himself within group dynamics. He assiduously avoids disagreement even when he intrinsically knows he is correct. He excessively apologizes to superficially maintain harmony. He shamelessly flatters powerful individuals to feel included. This is not diplomacy. It is unequivocally weakness. Respect can unequivocally survive conflict. Validation, however, cannot. The more he feeds on external praise, the more intrinsically fragile he becomes. If someone dares to criticize him, he spirals into profound despair. If someone chooses to ignore him, He succumbs to debilitating panic. His fragile self-worth is inextricably tied to the external applause. When the applause ceases, so too does his fragile confidence. That is precisely why this archetype often crashes in profound silence. No external attention equates to no internal compass. This desperate thirst for validation also manifests profoundly in his chosen lifestyle. He acquires possessions to impress others, not to genuinely build something of substance. He posts endlessly to be admired, not to genuinely communicate. He slavishly conforms to transient trends, even when they directly contradict his purported values. There is no enduring core, merely a haphazard collection of borrowed opinions, ersatz humility, and superficial charm. Machiavelli would unequivocally consider this man a dangerous liability in leadership. Why? Because in moments of intense pressure, he will invariably fold to popular opinion if it risks failure. He is utterly incapable of making unpopular decisions. He will never ever choose respect over fleeting relevance. But the strong man, however, can navigate through a barrage of criticism, unshaken. He does not require being liked. He chooses to be feared if necessary, but always respected. He will deliberately disappoint others to remain unequivocally aligned with true power and unwavering principle. That is the caliber of man who leads, the caliber of man who endures. So observe for this critical trait. Does he require incessant compliments to function? Does he relentlessly chase likes, praise, or fleeting popularity at the expense of unvarnished truth? Does he assiduously avoid conflict merely to keep others superficially comfortable? If so, you are not dealing with a leader. You are dealing with a puppet dancing for approval, never for power. The weak man's greatest fear is not failure, it is disapproval. And nothing threatens his delicate sense of belonging more profoundly than conflict. So he assiduously avoids it at all costs, even when the confrontation is absolutely necessary, even when silence unequivocally means surrender. He labels it peacekeeping, taking the high road, or protecting his energy. But Machiavelli would call it precisely what it truly is: cowardice disguised as virtue. A strong man intimately knows when to fight. He is not reckless, but he is certainly not passive. He is perfectly capable of confrontation and is utterly unafraid to draw definitive lines in the sand. When his boundaries are blatantly violated, when injustice conspicuously manifests, when betrayal surfaces unequivocally, he acts decisively, calmly, and with profound strategic intent. The weak man conversely avoids confrontation with the same primal instinct that prey avoids predators. He remains stubbornly silent when disrespected. He allows his core values to be shamelessly trampled upon, merely to circumvent discomfort. He rationalizes his pervasive inaction with specious wisdom: "I don't want drama," or "it's not worth it." But the unvarnished truth is he does not lack opportunity. He simply lacks spine. You will witness this pattern even in his relationships. He is mistreated, yet he forgives far too readily. When others brazenly cross the line, he lets it slide without consequence. When faced with blatant manipulation, he folds subserviently instead of confronting it directly. Eventually, people cease to respect him, not because he is inherently kind, but because he is remarkably predictable, passively compliant, and effortlessly exploited. Machiavelli grasped this brutal truth. Power respects power. If you fail to assert yourself, someone else will inevitably do it for you. And the man who steadfastly refuses to step into conflict will forever serve those who are willing to. Even in leadership, this man is an unmitigated disaster. He assiduously avoids difficult conversations. He is paralyzed by the fear of firing toxic individuals. He prioritizes consensus over clarity. And in the end, he inexorably loses control, not in a dramatic explosion, but in a gradual, silent erosion of authority. Conflict is not chaos. It is a vital tool to protect order, assert values, and reveal genuine character. But the weak man was never adequately taught how to navigate it, so he runs from it. And in his flight, he willingly cedes power. The Machiavellian mindset is distinctly different. It perceives conflict as a potent weapon wielded with surgical precision. Not every battle is worth fighting true, but some are absolutely required. And knowing precisely when to engage is what fundamentally separates the weak from the strategic. So ask yourself, does he shrink when challenged? Does he remain stubbornly quiet when it is unequivocally time to speak up? Does he let others lead merely to avoid tension? If so, you are not observing a peacekeeper. You are observing a man who will betray you simply to avoid being uncomfortable. The weak man talks incessantly. He erroneously mistakes exposure for strength. He prematurely reveals his meticulously guarded plans before they are solidified, announces his ambitious goals before he has genuinely earned the discipline to pursue them, and invites judgment before he has forged the necessary armor to withstand it. Why? Because the weak man is not singularly focused on execution. He is obsessively preoccupied with impression. He desperately needs people to know he is going somewhere because he requires the applause to sustain his momentum. He erroneously conflates mere declaration with actual progress. But the very moment he articulates his plan into the world, he dilutes its potency. He unwittingly grants others the power to influence it, to criticize it, and even to outright sabotage it. Machiavelli would view this as amateurish behavior, indicative of a man conspicuously lacking fox-like cunning. The fox intimately understands the terrain. He adapts, conceals, and maneuvers quietly. The weak man. He charges headlong with a megaphone, utterly oblivious to the carefully laid traps he is blithely walking into. This pervasive tendency exposes deeper, more insidious problems. He desperately requires validation before he can even initiate action. He craves reassurance that he is on the right path before he has even taken a single step. He fundamentally lacks the intrinsic strength to work diligently in silence. He is unequivocally addicted to attention, not genuine achievement. He consistently overestimates loyalty. He naively believes others will genuinely celebrate his success, when in brutal reality, many will secretly root for his abject failure. This man lives a life of public ambition and private failure. He will set 10 ambitious goals, loudly articulate all of them, but follow through on precisely none. When subsequently questioned, he will readily offer flimsy excuses, deftly shift blame, or feign that the goal never truly mattered. He is not focused on tangible impact. He is singularly focused on image. Contrast this sharply with the Machiavellian operator, who inherently understands that the most effective moves are meticulously made in silence. The true strategist meticulously guards information shares selectively and masterfully employs misdirection when deemed necessary. Power is not about transparency, it is about impeccable timing. And weak men possess notoriously terrible timing. Even in high-stakes negotiations or cutthroat competition, this type of man invariably shows his hand far too early. He reveals his angle before he has secured the decisive win. He over-explains to desperately prove himself. He leaks his ambition before securing adequate protection. As a direct consequence, others expertly utilize his openness against him. So observe closely. Does he talk far more than he builds? Does he relentlessly chase applause before delivering tangible results? Does he erroneously confuse mere exposure with genuine progress? If so, you are not dealing with a fox or a lion. You are dealing with prey, loud, conspicuously visible, and profoundly vulnerable. A weak man is not harmless. He is a liability to himself, to others, and to you. Because weakness does not remain hidden. It spreads, it betrays, it collapses inevitably under pressure. But now you see through the superficial smile, the performative facade, the self-pitying display. Now you know the unvarnished Machiavellian truth. In a world of lions, the weak man dies pretending to be one.